presentation on the infamous Windrush Scandal. Naturally, as the title suggests, this presentation shall be defining and explaining the Windrush Scandal, what it was, what it entailed, and who it affected. But also, it shall analyse its causes, scrutinise the government's decisions and actions, and examine the societal effects it had on Great Britain. So, what is the Windrush? The term Windrush is an umbrella term used to describe the post-war migration to Great Britain. It originates from HMT Empire Windrush, which was one of the first ships to arrive in Britain to offload migrants in search of a new life. So then, what is the Windrush generation? Well, this is a term used to describe the large body of people who migrated to Great Britain between the years 1948 and 1973. It's generally used to specifically describe the Caribbean population who migrated to Britain during this time. So then, what was the scandal? A few years back, due to a combination of reasons, which we shall discuss later on, a large number of British Caribbeans who had arrived in Britain during this Windrush era of 1948 to 73, well, they were being illegally stripped of their basic rights, threatened with deportation, and in some extreme cases were even deported from the country they had called home their entire life. Caribbean migrants have had a profound influence on British culture, evolving British society through language with the development of Multicultural London English, or MLE, the modern English language used in various cities in the UK, largely deriving from Jamaican and other variants of Creole. Music, Caribbean ska and reggae rhythms alongside sound system culture formed genres such as punk rock, dubstep, grime, garage, jungle and drum and bass. Culture, of course, the spectacular Notting Hill Carnival, which celebrates Caribbean culture, is one of the biggest street carnivals in the world, with over 2 million people participating each year. Sports, representation for a multitude of different sports, aiding numerous Olympic campaigns, helping to solidify Britain's position as one of the world's leading countries in the Games. Food, the introduction of new spices and foods such as jerk chicken and rice and peas, and the popularisation of street food and food trucks in Britain. The combination of these three causes allowed the Windrush Scandal to occur. The first cause of the Windrush Scandal were the Immigration Acts. The 1948 British Nationality Act granted British citizenship to citizens of its colonies. This effectively opened up the borders of Britain to anyone who lived in the British Empire and its colonies, allowing them to migrate there and live there. Then we move on to the three acts which begin to shut down this flow of migration. First is the 1962 Commonwealth Immigrants Act, which begins this movement of clamping down on immigration, just restricting the immigration from these colonies. Then is the 1968 Commonwealth Immigrants Act, which restricts the ability to hold a UK passport for the people in these colonies. And finally is the 1971 Immigration Act, which introduced the concept of patriality, restricting UK citizenship to those born in the UK and their children or grandchildren. It also granted indefinite leave to remain to Commonwealth citizens already settled in the UK before 1973. Another cause is that there was no formal documentation. The 1971 Immigration Act did not provide documentation for those who migrated. Combined with the fact that the Home Office did not consistently keep records confirming their status as a British citizen resulted in there being zero proof of their British identity. The final cause is the 2010 Conservative-led coalition government and the immigration policies which they implemented. They introduced a series of measures to create a hostile environment, as they called it, for illegal immigrants, including the Immigration Act of 2014, which introduced changes to the removals and appeal system, making it easier and quicker to remove those with no right to be here by law. This prevented illegal immigrants accessing and using public services or the labour market. This also put an end to the use of Article 8 of the European Convention on Human Rights, which is the right to respect for family and private life. This act also places obligations on landlords, employers, and healthcare providers to check the immigration status of individuals. The Home Office immigration targets. The Home Office set aggressive immigration removal targets to meet government objectives. This put pressure on immigration officials to identify and remove illegal immigrants, even more so. The Windrush landing cards were destroyed. In 2010, the UK Border Agency destroyed thousands of landing cards documenting the arrival of Windrush-era migrants from the Caribbean. This made it even more difficult for individuals to prove their right to remain in the UK. The Windrush Scandal was happening behind closed doors for many years, until in 2017 it all began to unravel, with reports emerging of Caribbean-born individuals who came to the UK as children being denied access to healthcare, losing their jobs, and facing deportation due to lack of documentation. Then, a report by the Joint Council for the Welfare of Immigrants warned about the impact of the hostile environment policy on the Windrush generation. Fast forward to April 2018, The Guardian published a report on the Windrush generation being wrongly detained, denied legal rights, threatened with deportation, and even in some cases being wrongly deported. The Windrush Scandal began to gain significant media attention, sparking great public outrage. Home Secretary Amber Rudd faced calls to resign over her handling of the hostile environment policy. Then an article, again by The Guardian, was published on its front page, and the political response was instantaneous. Ministers who had previously shown no interest were now falling over themselves to express profound sorrow. This resulted in Amber Rudd resigning as Home Secretary at the end of April. A report issued by the National Audit Office a few months down the line criticised the government's response to the Windrush Scandal, stating that it had been too slow and complex in its implementation of the compensation schemes, and that there were too few checks and balances made for the enforcement of the action to be successful. A couple of years later, the Windrush Lessons Learned Review was published by Wendy Williams. In this, she highlighted systemic failings within the Home Office, greatly urging for cultural change within the Home Office and criticising the hostile environment policy once again. Here are a couple real-life stories from victims of the Windrush Scandal. So, here are some government responses and reactions to the Windrush Scandal. I will allow you to form your own opinion on how they make you feel and if they are measured. The Windrush Scandal seemed to confirm the belief which many British Caribbeans held in the back of their mind, which was that the government disliked them and their existence in the country, that systemic racism thrived in Downing Street and therefore in government policies. It caused the straining bonds of trust between the Caribbean community and the British government to completely break down, unravelling 70 years of lying and deception of the government's Windrush narrative which they had been pushing, which was that these loyal subjects, which the motherland had welcomed with their arms open and helped rebuild the nation after the war, were greatly loved and admired and appreciated for doing so. British Caribbeans, after the Windrush Scandal, now saw it differently. They saw it for what they believed it truly is, which was a system against them. And many believed after the scandal, they thought, why? Why would you actively now support or follow a system which attempted to rid this country of Britain of your culture, the people who brought the culture and diversity over? This is Wendy Williams' opinion in her critical analysis review of the Windrush Scandal and the government's reaction to it. Critical discourse. So here we're going to be looking at and analysing different and intriguing arguments within this space. These may very well be essay questions as well, if you want to expand on the points made and write an essay. Where are we now? I believe we are at a point where there is more show than change. For example, a couple of months ago, the Windrush line was announced as a gesture of respect to the Windrush generation. However, firstly, this could have merely been a PR stunt performed by Sadiq Khan due to the upcoming London mayoral elections. Secondly, it does not help to change the systemic racism within the government, within its policies, shown in the lack of care to research the possible effects new laws and policies may have on British Caribbeans. Despite it being such a negative topic and it causing traumatic memories for those affected, the importance of the Windrush Scandal should not be overlooked and cast away. It should be used and remembered repetitively to influence future policies and decisions to ensure nothing remotely similar has the chance to even accidentally happen again.